I'm Jeremy Fleming from EurActiv, and I'm joined this morning by Peter Hustinks, Europe's Data Protection Supervisor, to discuss some of the issues which are currently on the agenda and coming up. Thank you very much for joining me this morning, Peter. We have some evidence internally which shows that rules like the cookie warning rules are not always being observed even by EU institutions. In those circumstances, do you not think that the trust becomes more of a problematic issue?
Well, I agree in principle. Let's say we are aware of the problems with cookies and web tracking on EU websites. And there is a legal and a technical side to this. The legal is that the famous cookie provision was inserted. The current one was inserted in 2009. The current regulation applying to the institutions was adopted in 2001, and it doesn't have the same provisions. It doesn't speak of cookies at all. And that should be an element which is part of the renewal review we just discussed. Then there is a technical question. We are preparing guidelines for, say, website and email use in general. In fact, we had a very useful workshop this week, and this will also address the question of tracking. And we know that the Commission and the Parliament's data protection officers are working on this. And if we come to the detail, there is a question of which kind of cookies, and then we come increasingly detailed. But there is perhaps also a sense that the existing rule in the e-privacy directive, the cookie provision, is a bit too general and should distinguish between what is really worrisome and less worrisome, and then we could perhaps be more effective.
And so in your discussions with the internal officers of the institutions, have they indicated that they're aware that there are cookie issues internally?
Oh yes. To be quite open about this, we have last year organized in the course of a strategic review an opinion survey, and we found that using the EU institutions methodology would not have been appropriate. So we've used another operator which respected the existing cookie rules fully.
Right.
So I did not want to use this, but true. It is a situation which needs to be addressed. I think we're working on this. They are working on this. We'll make sure it leads to good results in a good time.
The meeting that Viviane Reding is having with Eric Holder in Dublin today, she has been told to send a strong message by the MEPs to the US Attorney General that this PRISM scandal indicates unacceptable levels of snooping on European citizens. She herself has sent a letter, I think, to the Attorney General. What do you make of this evolving story?
The story is profoundly troubling, deeply concerned, and I think this requires very profound clarification, explanation, and justification. First on the scale and size, but also on, say, the justification in terms of all the elements of the right to data protection and privacy as we know it in terms of Europe. It may be that there is a legal basis there is a law, there is a Patriot Act, and there is a FISA Act, and I believe that Congress has reaffirmed it 3 times, changing, reducing, extending, and that there may be a court involved, a secret court. But that in itself is not decisive. So it needs to be, in order to be acceptable, it needs to be on the basis of clear law, which allows predictability, a clear focus, proportionality, adequate safeguards. And I must say that the answers are not so reassuring so far. So I'm looking forward to convincing justification. And then we need to go from there and also be not be naive. It may be that European governments are involved somehow or are doing similar things. Then the same standards apply to them. Then we have to see whether this is acceptable, whether this is the society we want to live in.
Last week, the Irish presidency proposed a new compromise on data protection, which was discussed among the ministers in Luxembourg. Have you seen or heard anything about that which gives you cause for concern, or how do you feel that the council discussions are going in tandem with the Parliament?
Well, I've seen the council text. It's work in progress, but on the whole, it seems to be moving in the right direction. It takes up a number of concerns which I have also expressed. The so-called risk-based approach is not just a business-friendly approach. It's also very realistic to deliver effective data protection in practice. It doesn't mean that all elements are great, but on the whole it's a huge step forward. But we're in the middle of a legislative process. Parliament is, it seems, struggling a bit. It doesn't have a position yet, a discussion in Libe. But before the summer, if not that, then right after the summer, we need to have a position which allows negotiations moving towards a general consensus.